Hello, welcome to the Go There Do That podcast. My name is Ethan, and I'm here with my wife Heather and all of our animals.
Yes,
of
Moosh
course.
is right in the middle of the action today, and
O'Malley's
O'Malley
finding a
can't
place.
decide
Yeah.
where he's going to be. But we do record our podcast with animals in our house, so
It's like a zoo. What are we talking about today?
Barbenheimer.
Barbenheimer. Yeah, Barbie and Barbie movie and the Oppenheimer movie. Two separate movies, but we're going to talk about both because we saw both.
And we are go there, do that. It doesn't have to be always traveling. Sometimes you just go to the movies, and that's what you do. So it still fits within our niche.
Well, and it's something that I want to talk about, and it's like culturally relevant. I know a lot of the conversation's been had, and the debates have been settled, and so now we're here to, come in at the end and talk about it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
After it's like died down, yeah.
Yeah, if everybody's moved on, then whatever, but
don't listen, that's fine.
We just want to talk about it.
Yeah. I'm also just going to give my opinion on it, and I am not trying to convince you in particular of anything, so if you feel differently, there's no reason to come at me, and that's okay, you know?
You can come at me though. Just kidding.
Yeah, Ethan likes to
debate
with people, but
I mean, so which one first? I mean, we can kind of exchange the two. They're not really related. They just are.
Absolutely not. They're both movies. They're just movies that came out at the same time.
Yeah, and I'm excited because we are now talking about movies again, and
it feels kind of like a betrayal because the first movie we're talking about is not Babe.
Oh.
And Babe Pig in the City, but
which was discussed in one of our earlier podcasts that we were going to do movie reviews about Babe and Babe Pig in the City. So that is later though. We have to do more research on those. That'll take a while to form the thesis on those movies. So right now, Barbie. Let's talk about that one first.
Okay.
Alphabetical order.
Okay.
So what did you think of the Barbie movie upon watching?
I really liked the Barbie movie. It's probably one of my favorite movies that I've seen recently. Recently being within the past couple of years, honestly. It was just really wasn't expecting much from it, and when I initially was seeing previews and stuff, I had no desire to see it, but then I was hearing good things about it, and so it kind of sparked my interest in seeing it, and I was pleasantly surprised.
With what specifically? What was the biggest surprise that you've had?
Well, I wasn't expecting the Barbie movie to make me feel things.
Like what?
Relating to growing up. What it's like to grow up as a girl into a woman. I personally did play with Barbies. And then just it was a really fun movie too. It was very visually appealing. And a fun movie with a fun concept and plot, but then it wasn't just at that base fun movie that it definitely could have been and still made a lot of money.
Yeah, the name alone everybody recognizes.
Right. So. But it had a really good story in my opinion, and really hit some deep notes on some things that really resonated with me about what it's like to grow up and be human, and I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
Obviously, we can talk more about it, but that's just the summary.
There were some deep notes. That's what I hear. And what are those deep notes?
Well, I'll go into it. But what was your experience?
It's so obviously I can only speak from my perspective. And my perspective in summary was I don't think that men should define themselves by the approval of anyone. In this case, it was the approval of women.
Right.
So you shouldn't yearn for like somebody else's approval because you are your own person.
You're always going to feel disappointed by that.
Well, yeah, you shouldn't be defined by like somebody else's like opinion of you.
Yeah.
Because if you don't get the girl,
Right.
you know, oh, I guess the reason we're talking about it so late is because we can talk about spoilers.
Oh, whoops. Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This is a spoiler.
Okay.
Spoilerific.
Yeah.
Ryan Gosling.
So if you haven't seen it, then
Ryan
then you
Gosling,
plan
Ken, does not get the girl.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a valuable lesson because,
Yeah.
you know, with those typical movies back in the day, you have the literally like you have to get the girl is
Yeah,
like
and
a
that's
plot point. It's
right.
like, oh, you're not going to get the girl.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're a loser if you
And
don't.
that's the only way you live happily ever after at the end of the
Yes.
movie. Yeah.
And there is a happily ever after that does exist.
That's interesting
And-
because that's like a similar, like from like a woman's perspective, it's a similar thing. So like from a man's perspective, you're saying like it's kind of ingrained in you that like you can only be happy if you like get the girl. And then from like a woman's perspective, that is also ingrained in you that like you can only be happy if you're like gotten by the man at the end, like saved, rescued, whatever, you know.
Damsel in distress, all that.
Yeah. So that's interesting.
Yep. I mean, Shrek is a good movie in that way.
It is, yeah.
Where it kind of subverts the hero isn't the one that was supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was Shrek, but then it turns out that they were more compatible in the end. So that's like a testament to compatibility, right? But
Right.
Barbie and Ken
We're
in
not
this
compatible.
movie were not compatible,
Yeah.
and that like subverts your expectations. 'Cause you're like, what? I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
So that upsets a lot of people because it's like, you know, projecting themselves onto Ken. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, maybe I didn't get the girl in my life,
Mm-hmm.
so I was hoping to live through Ken, but it didn't happen. So it kind of upsets me. So
Yeah.
women are bad, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
Margot Robbie is, Barbie is bad because she rejected
Mm-hmm.
this person.
Mm-hmm.
And people can take it too far.
For sure.
Each way,
I've seen
you know,
it
like-
taken too far both ways.
Yeah. But I think that's my take on it. Is just like, hey,
Yeah.
don't get so worked up, you know, when you don't get your way.
Yeah.
Like,
Honestly.
things happen, and it is a movie that has Barbie Land and the real world like going back and forth. But the real world is also just a caricature of
What the real world really
yeah.
is. Yeah.
So it's not even like, well, this is how the real world is. It's just an exaggeration.
It's still exaggerated, yeah.
Yeah, but it is a movie, so you have to tell that story and make your points quickly.
Right, exactly.
And so whenever they're like skating together and then just everybody reacts to them, it like knocks out a couple different like sexual harassment, you know,
Yeah.
all these things.
Well, and we've
all at
already
once.
talked about this, like, not on a podcast, but you brought up how, like, you, in your opinion, you were saying that, like, that was very exaggerated, like, where, you know, you're in the real world for 5 seconds, and as a woman, like, you get your butt slapped, you know, and, like, that was a very aggressive, like, tone right at the beginning, and you didn't think it was that realistic, but then I like explained to you that it did like capture, in my opinion, like what it can feel like as a woman to just like walk around in public, because although no, your butt is not slapped in public every day, like for the most part, I feel like a lot of women have had an experience like that where it was just over the line. Like you have been crossed over the line with by someone who disrespected you physically, verbally, you know, which happened like right in that like opening part of that sequence. And like it's not an exaggeration, because although that doesn't happen every time I like go to Target by myself, like it's happened enough in my experiences where it is something that's like in the back of your mind and something that you have to like unfortunately think about, you know, and yeah.
Yeah, and I have there's the mix up of like thinking it from like a movie storytelling point of view. Like there are like certain, the point of the movie is to make a point, not exactly like tell a full whole story, in my opinion. So
Right, yeah.
you know, like they do, it's like point A, point B back, they go to Barbie Land and then, but it's more like set up. It's more told like you set up and then it's the punchline, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how most of the things are. Like they're skating around and then they punch somebody and then they get arrested and then now all of a sudden Margot Robbie's sitting on a bench with a elderly woman and the whole shift.
That was the first time I cried in
Yeah.
the movie, and I was like totally unprepared.
Right, because it shifts very quickly throughout the
Yes,
movie. So
to be like, oh, this is fun and cute.
Yes.
And like, yeah.
And so that was like my thing was like, okay, so the heroes are on a journey to go here, but it's really not like about that so much. It's more about
Yeah.
how different perspectives within this realm of maybe culturally what Barbie has perpetuated, not created, right? But like the beginning of the movie mimics 2001: A Space Odyssey,
Yeah.
and instead of the what do they call it, the dang it, the monument, the obelisk, something, they're that big spire that
Right,
they
in that movie.
and so then that starts to evolve humanity, and so they do that, but with little children,
Yeah.
and the baby dolls was like a thing,
Yeah.
right? And so that was like
That was the only thing you like had to play with
well, that was
as a girl.
yes, but what does taking care of a baby instead of dressing up an adult woman do to the psyche of young girls, right? And it kind of showed that visually where, oh, now you have this
You have
adult,
a different opportunity
yeah,
presented to you.
yeah, because Barbie she has so many jobs, right? Like
Yeah.
the brand
Yeah, you
of
can be
Barbie.
anything, yeah.
You can be anything. You can be a construction worker. You can be a doctor. You can be this. You don't have to be playing to the standards of society. Like that's kind of what it unlocked, I think, for a lot. Like,
Yeah.
and then they're smashing the dolls against the rocks, and it's like we don't have to just be mothers anymore, right? We don't have to just take care of these little babies, and that is one point it made in the beginning because it's like Margot Robbie, but then there is like a negative to everything.
Yeah, like I appreciated how it touched on that, like, because yeah, I can definitely see how like Barbie was like empowering, but then yeah, two sides to that coin because could definitely be considered problematic because it did, it's not the only thing that was keeping up those like standards of like what a woman is supposed to look like, but it definitely is like some idealized picture of like what a woman's body is supposed to look like.
Standards of bodily
Yeah.
autonomy and all that.
Right.
Because, they do address that in the movie.
They did, and I appreciated that because it's like, this is, yeah.
Margot Robbie I forget the exact scenario they were in, but she was upset and crying, and she was talking about how she wasn't like living up to, she's like, I'm ugly or whatever, but then they like did voiceover and they're like, we know we used Margot Robbie for this.
Yeah, and she's a super beautiful woman.
Yeah, and so this,
yeah.
like, we know
Yeah.
we used her.
Yeah, but also even like when she was interacting with like the teenagers for the first time, and they're like, we like don't like you, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because you
because she's like, I'm
because of what
Barbie.
you represent. Yeah.
Yeah, they're talking to like young girls. They were in what age? Like teenagers?
Yeah, I did see this
Yeah.
theory, and it was like, I don't know how true it is. I didn't like research much into it, but like I saw this thing that those four girls are meant to be like the like brats, which you might not know what that is, but they're like another doll that like came out when I was like
Bratz babies.
a kid. No, they're not babies.
Oh,
they're
Bratz.
Bratz dolls.
Oh,
And they were like, so they were kind of like standing up to Barbie, like, we don't like you. So yeah.
interesting.
Because they literally have like the Bratz dolls' names, like Jade. I don't even remember the other
Oh, they
ones.
do.
But
Huh.
yeah, and so I was like, oh, that's kind of funny.
Yeah. So why was Barbie so popular, you think? The dolls and the whole thing. Like, why is it relevant to have a conversation about it? That's what it seemed to kind of
Like the movie?
Well, the movie is the part of the brand, right?
Yeah, I just didn't
And
know what you were talking, if you were talking about like the doll or the movie.
both, right? The doll is a part of the movie. The movie wouldn't exist without the doll, and that's why they talked about it. So, like, why is it so important? You said growing up. At a
Yeah,
deeper
like
level. Yeah.
that was like definitely something like I played with Barbies growing up. Like I had a ton of Barbies. My mom grew up playing Barbies. And so I wasn't allowed to like touch her. Like vintage ones that she like still had in boxes and stuff, which always bothered me.
Yeah, there's a collector side of things too.
Right.
Preserving.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It was just like a way of pretending. So like I played with Barbies like quite often, but I did play with them in like a little different way because I did have like a Barbie house at one point, but it was like really small and it wasn't like much. And so I would like build a Barbie house for myself, but it was just like me imagining things. It was just like books basically, but then like each book was like a room in the house and I would like try my best to like set up like using inanimate objects and stuff, and I would build like create this like mansion. So I was like always very interested in like kind of like architecture, I guess, even though I never really like explored that
Well, you like
super far.
designing things and
Yeah.
decorating too. Like that's always been your thing since I've.
But I would
known you.
basically like when I was young, like I would play with Barbies normally, but then when I got to be a little bit older, I would like basically just build this crazy house. I would spend all day building the house, and then I would play with the Barbies for like 10 minutes, and then but my main thing was that I used the Barbies as an excuse to like build a world.
So you said your mom collected them?
Yeah.
And so there's several different reasons to have owned one. Like
right.
So it's like I want to decorate the house, or I want to pretend that I'm Barbie going to this job, or I want to just dress somebody up because I love fashion,
right.
or I just want to collect them because they're gonna be worth something.
Right. Like I feel like everybody played with Barbies for like different
reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that's important too, because when I think some people think the reason the movie's relevant is for their reason only, that's where a lot of like friction comes from.
Yeah.
I think it's not like I'm on Twitter constantly looking at debates. It's just like things I've experienced in real life where people have a certain opinion. And I'm like, that's great that you took that away, but it's not just about, it's just like a human level.
Yeah.
It's not gender specific. There's always going to be aggressors and protectors, but it's not like specific to gender,
Yeah.
What are you going to say? The old lady part, going back to that, I want to mention what happens at that scene, because you said you cried and we didn't.
That was the first time I cried, because, she's like sitting on the bench with the like old lady, and she like, and Margot Robbie does like a really good job of just like, she looks so genuine in that moment, and just like looking at her and like has like a tear in her eye, and she's like, "You're beautiful," and the lady just says like, "I know." And that's just like I don't even know why that like impacted me so much.
Well, because you don't need to be told you're beautiful, but it's again with the approval, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like you need to be told you're beautiful in order to think you're beautiful, or you need to be told that what you're doing is okay in order to think what you're doing is okay. When choosing your own, what's best for you.
Yeah.
Like you chose Barbie because you wanted to design the house. It's not because you wanted to live up to standards, right? But that does residually kind of come from that as well.
Something else that like resonated with me and like it made me emotional at another point in the movie too. It's very in the same like spot, but where it's like basically showing the like teenage girl like growing up and like getting rid of her Barbies, but then her mom like keeps one back, and then you find out later that like it was really her mom playing with the Barbie. But like I think that like I remember that like time in my life where it's been a long time since you've played with your Barbies, and it's like, is it time to like let them go? But then also in that, because they're such like an integral part of your childhood, like you are like, when you decide to get rid of your Barbies, that is you like letting go of your childhood. And I like remember how strange and like sad that felt. But also I was like, I'm not freaking playing with Barbies anymore. Like, get them out of here. They're just taking up room in my closet. But it is something that you kind of like, not even knowing it because you're like, you know, a teenager or whatever, but you do have like, you feel like a grief, and you're like, these are just stupid dolls. Like, why am I so sad that I'm getting rid of these Barbies that I haven't played with in like 3 years?
Mm-hmm.
But it's because you're like saying goodbye to like your girlhood
Mm-hmm.
in a sense. And
Like,
that
yeah.
hit me hard. I was like quietly sobbing in
Yeah.
my chair.
Yeah, the ending of Toy Story 3, too. Like,
Right.
he's going off to college, and he's like, so long, partner. Like, he
Yeah.
has to give his toys to somebody else.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's like a similar thing. And so, let's see here. Ken, and the what did you think of Ken Land whenever they changed it? They, like, all the guys took over, and they were, like, pretending macho and...
It was, I mean, it was
Right.
like funny.
Like a fraternity.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it reminded
Yeah.
me of. Yeah. Mojo Dojo Casa House. Yeah.
And is that like, that is, I mean, I say that like a group of guys is with unchecked by, you know, the sanity of a female voice sometimes leads to certain rambunctious activities,
For sure.
you know, and that's like again, exaggerated example, but yeah, Ryan Gosling is funny because he's just like wearing this stupid like fur coat or whatever,
Right.
and puts on sunglasses, and he's like, I don't, you know, we don't need you. Like, you're, oh, and some of the Barbies, because Margot Robbie returns, you know, and all, they were like, it's fine not thinking about anything.
Yeah.
Remember, like, they were just serving drinks and stuff
Yeah.
as waitresses, and they're like, this is great. I don't have to make a decision for myself,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And so that's like a dangerous way of
Yeah.
thinking too, whenever you have that sort of crazy amount of oppression that it showed in the movie too.
Yeah.
But that's something that I
Well, I thought,
don't experience.
yeah, like I think that men and women can certainly bring out the best in each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, yeah, like unchecked by the other one can be like not great and like chaos.
What does checking look like, you know?
Yeah, like I don't
Yeah.
mean checking like in a negative way.
Without an understanding,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And like an appreciation for what the other one is saying.
How much do you remember from America? I don't know her last.
Oh, her speech,
the-
America
yeah,
Ferrera. Yeah.
like her speech that she gives.
Well, I wouldn't be able to quote it verbatim, but
Well,
I
I'm
can
saying,
remember
like,
like how I felt
Yeah,
listening to it.
the vibe of it. She just goes off at one point in the movie and just starts
Right.
saying,
Because it's
like,
so overwhelming because you're basically expected to like
you're expected
to be a perfect being.
Why don't you speak up for yourself? But then if you do, you're nagging.
Yes.
You know, like things like that.
Yes.
It's like nothing. It's all contradictory.
You can't
do
be
anything
correct.
right.
You can't do anything right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that, again, I spoke to Ken about, not spoke
You
to
spoke
him,
to him?
spoke to his perspective.
Yeah.
Right? That you shouldn't be defined by someone else's approval or opinion.
Right.
And I think that's the trap that, you know,
People
you can
can
get
fall
into,
into,
where it's
yeah.
like, you're supposed to all the time. And it's like, this doesn't make sense anymore. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you just want somebody to just not have an opinion at that point if nothing they do is correct, right? And I think that's what it was kind of speaking to.
Yeah. Hey,
All right,
O'Malley.
here we have O'Malley joining us. All right.
Yeah. I was going to say something. Ew, that's a lot of mouth noises you're making. Hold on, I need to reset. You start a different topic. And I don't mean like a brand new topic, but just like okay. So
Barbie movie.
yeah. Yeah, I really liked it.
Cool. What message do you think it sent overall?
To me, like what I got out of it was just like like feeling heard and understood, that like it kind of is sad to like grow up. But it's also like beautiful to grow up and like be human, you know?
It's okay to be human?
It's beautiful to grow up and like be human, and it's like complicated because it's like, you know, when you're like a little girl playing with Barbies, like you don't know everything that you know about the world like you do now. And that can feel like sad sometimes, but it's also beautiful because there's so many things that you know about the world that you didn't know then that are like good things too. But just like even at the end, like she chooses to like be human instead of, you know, stay a Barbie and like this idea, because being human is like messy, but it is such a like gift, which I think was like a nice message.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then like I definitely got that the same thing that you got from like Ken, where it was like, hey, like you don't like be your own person, and that's like okay, like you don't have to be the guy that like got the girl for to have like meaning and purpose. And so like I thought that that was like a nice message. And I know that some people, you know, think that it was just like a feminist ploy, and like it was just saying how like terrible men are and like how great women are, but that's like not what I got from it at all. I guess if that's like what you're looking for, maybe that's what you get from it.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that it was like nice to both sides, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, there was something else important, and it just like went.
Must not have been that important.
It
I'm
was.
just kidding. Well, you obviously have. There's so many different elements to pick apart too. It's hard to know which one to like focus on. I mean, there are a lot of one-sided arguments that are made, you know, because like there is an inverse to every perspective. Like toxic masculinity is a term that I have heard, and is there such thing as positive masculinity? I don't know.
I think so.
And
Like there has to be.
right,
Because there's toxic femininity.
and there have been
And there's
yes,
positive femininity. Like the part where it's
yes,
like women have like the guitar singing scene. Like we
oh,
do have the power to like to O'Malley is like rolling around on the rug, sorry. We do have the power to like manipulate men if we want to.
not me.
Right.
Just kidding.
Never mind, I was about to say something. When you worked my shift at Red Lobster.
I mean, that's whatever. Like you still remember things from.
Yeah. But yeah,
7 years
like
ago.
we definitely have the power to like use our like feminine powers for good or evil in the same way that like men do. Now I definitely do think that like the world is set up to be a lot easier for men as it is like right now. But I also recognize that men go through struggles that I don't understand and can't understand. You know?
Yeah.
But, I did remember. So there was a part, and it was like such a small little part, but it was like America Ferrera talking to Barbie about how, like, you know, about the real world. And it's like, you know, yeah, men hate women, women hate women. It's a whole. O'Malley, please. This is not playtime. Yeah, she says like men hate women, women hate women, like it's a whole thing. And like that's the thing. Like I have been hurt by men and I've been hurt by women, and I do think that sometimes like women can be a lot meaner to each other than men are sometimes. And it's like I don't quite know where that like comes from. But it was like an interesting thing to just like be touched on, because it's like men aren't the only ones that like put women down, because other women put women down too.
Weird Barbie in the movie.
Yeah.
She looks weird, so they all make fun of her.
Yeah.
And like, she's a social outcast.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying like women are evil and they're worse than men. Like, I don't think either one is worse than the other or whatever. But like, I just do think that that is something to be said, that like women sometimes hate women too. And yeah. Yeah.
You can be a little catty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of it. Yeah.
No, you're not. Are you?
Well, not at this point in my life
yeah.
as much, but I've definitely been catty and icky.
I mean, sure, everybody, yeah. That's what you're taught, sort of. You get it from somewhere, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Is it just coincidentally everybody just thinking of it, or is it taught, learned behavior?
Well, I don't know. Maybe I should not share this.
Okay, then don't.
But I will anyways, whatever. Think whatever you want about me. But if I'm in a room with a man and a woman, I'm more intimidated by the other woman in the room. I'm more intimidated by the man in a physical sense. Like, I guess it depends on the context. But say it's just like a business professional setting, I am way more intimidated by the woman in the room than the man. But if you're feeling like insecure in yourself, then that could cause me to try to tear down the woman, because I kind of know how to, because I'm a woman. Like, you know?
Mm-hmm. You do that now?
No.
That was the old,
I've done that in the
old
past,
catty,
for sure.
Old catty version.
And I think that happens sometimes. That's not something I'm inclined to do now. I still recognize in myself, like, that's a true statement for right now. Like, if me right now am in a room with a man and a woman, I'm more intimidated by the woman. But I wouldn't tear the woman down because of that.
Well, it's just
now.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be tearing the man down either, but just in general, I actually feel more intimidated by women.
Yeah.
But not in a physical sense, like, yeah.
You go boxing.
But in a mental sense.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because you know what you're capable of.
Yeah.
That's what you were speaking. Like, in the past, you know what you're capable of. And you're like, how do you know somebody's being genuine with you and they're not, like, looking through you or into you, analyzing your flaws to exploit them, and they're not, like, looking at you for who you are, you know?
And in, like, in a adult, like, professional sense, you know, like, I went from being in college to being a teacher, and that is predominantly women. And so I don't have a lot of experience working with, like, men, so I don't have a lot of, like, things to say about men in, like, that sense. But I know that, like, I've worked with amazing women, and I worked with some women who were, like, mean. And I felt like I was in high school again. But you're, like, a grown woman.
Oh, yeah.
At work.
The sorority.
So I'm more intimidated by a woman in the room than a man.
Yeah, because I said, like, a fraternity can be, like, a crazy place, but I've never been in a fraternity, but that's what I mean by, like, just, like, a bunch of dudes all together. And so
to me, I'm just like, like, I'm not, I don't know.
But what does that look like when a bunch of women, like, because people can bring out the worst, a group can
bring out the best in each other, you can bring out the worst in each other,
like, there's group mind thinking where you can bring out the worst qualities of every member of the group, and that gets dangerous whenever they're kind of unchecked for a while. And by checked as in, like, hey guys, this hurts people's feelings or hurts people literally, and that just keeps going on and on forever, and then you end up with, you know, think of a group that's dangerous, and that might be a cause where nobody's ever been like, stop it.
Right.
You know, like, there's no boundaries, or there's no, like...
Yeah. There's no one in the group being like,
this is weird,
hold on, guys. Yeah.
Yeah. But even if one person speaks out, then that can just... that person can become either outcasted or invalidated, too. So that's the weird Barbie in the movie, right?
Yeah.
Like, she was different, and so then they're like, go live on that hill in your weird mansion or whatever.
Yep.
But it was like a nice property though. Like it was like a gated community, and she walked upstairs and
Yeah, it still doesn't feel great to be like outcast.
right.
But yeah.
And she did the splits all the time. But the idea behind it is that she was played with super rough, and so her hair was all weird and
Which I thought that
yeah.
was a funny. Yeah, there was just so many like funny concepts that like were put into it that like as you grow up you do think about that like thinking of like Toy Story, like, oh yeah, I was kind of rough with that Barbie at that time in my life or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, I mean, when growing up, I had two older sisters, and, like, I wasn't allowed to play with Barbies because it was like, why not? Because I didn't have, at the time, it was
You didn't
like,
have
I didn't have
brothers,
brothers. I have two younger brothers now. But, but yeah, they were like, no, you're not allowed to play with us because you're not a girl. I was
Yeah.
like, what? You can't use your what is imagination is just monopolized now with this toy, and so then yeah, me and my
That's what they
cousin.
were told.
Well,
So
right, yeah, it's
yeah,
like it's only for
there's
girls.
echoing.
And
Yeah.
I was like, I want to play too, though. It's more for me. It was more about like play because
Right.
my dumb, naive brain didn't know
Right.
that
That
you
that's for girls.
weren't allowed to. Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's what it's marketed towards. Is like in the commercials it shows only girls and only this, and that's fine because I guess boys had GI Joe with guns and killing and
Right. Yeah.
just you have to save everybody. Yeah, I had a thing called Rescue Heroes.
Oh.
Yeah, and so it was like a combination of animals and people and stuff. Like they had a was that Saint Bernard Beethoven dog?
Yeah.
Yeah, like you could just go rescue people, and that was like the whole idea. But it was action figures and stuff. Each person had their own specific like thing because one guy had like a welding mask, one guy had like a saw to cut through things, and it was kind of the same idea, I guess, but
Yeah.
saving people. But if you aren't saving people, you aren't a man. If you aren't saving the girl, the damsel in distress, right? So that's like where that might come from too. It's called Rescue Heroes.
Right.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
then GI Joe's the more popular one. But,
Yeah.
yeah. Rescue Heroes is the brats of the Barbie GI Joe. Yeah, Bratz is to Barbie as Rescue Heroes is to GI Joe.
GI Joe.
Why didn't they include?
But they were actually like action figures. GI Joe is just like. Oh no, I'm thinking of the little army soldiers. Never mind.
Oh, the green.
Yeah, I
there
was
wasn't-
like, they're not like
you
characters.
couldn't dress them up or
Yeah.
anything.
Like that's so boring.
Little green army men. No, that's also different.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's probably just like military propaganda, though. Join the military.
Yeah.
We'll make little green men. So yeah, that's Barbie. I don't know what else. It's pretty good. Pretty good overall. A lot of fun discussion being had.
It was really
I
funny. Just like our personal experience at the movie. Your friend had asked you to go to the movie to see it, and then I was like highly offended because I wanted to go see it, and so I basically like invited myself along. But anyways, after the movie, we like got in the car. And I'm the kind of person I do like to like collect my thoughts and like what I think before I like share them. And so y'all were like asking me what I thought of the movie like right after. And I was just like, I don't remember if I said it was good or if I literally said nothing.
It was fine. It was fine.
Yeah.
It was good. I liked it.
But then it like almost seemed to like make y'all uncomfortable. And then y'all just like started like talking more and more about it, and then you kept like turning back and being like, so what do you think of it? Like, what do you think? And I was like,
Excuse me
I
for
don't
wanting
know.
your
I'm
opinion.
not ready to share that yet.
Oh.
Well, a lot of it was this. I was like, I wanted to share with you, not share with you and your friend, because there was like things that I was like, oh, this like reminded me of my childhood, and this reminded me of this, and like just more personal than I like cared to share with him at the time.
Yeah, now you're on
And
a
so
podcast
I was like-
sharing your thoughts. So
Yeah, but not all of them. So yeah.
and then
But like I said, I like to collect that. Like I was like, I'll
Yeah.
share that with you right away,
yeah.
but not somebody I'm not as comfortable with.
And as you were silent, I said, "All right, then let's listen to 'Can You Hear the Music' by
Yeah.
the Oppenheimer soundtrack, and then I blasted it because
Yeah.
I was ready for Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
I didn't really plan to see the Barbie movie because it's just, it takes,
I didn't either until
yeah,
I heard that it was like
yeah.
good. Yeah.
And because I'm obviously, like, I'm a big Christopher Nolan fan, and his movies are very interesting, original, like abstract
Yeah.
type of things. Like Tenet is a very good one, but a lot of people don't understand the story. But then a line in that movie is, "Don't understand it, feel it." And he
Yeah.
has a killer soundtrack in all of his movies.
Yeah, we have Interstellar. We have an Interstellar movie poster and an Inception movie poster in our loft.
Oh wow, what a
Yeah.
coincidence! But that's me transitioning to Oppenheimer. If you are keen to it,
Yeah, sure.
okay. Because I was tired of you talking about me getting nervous about you being quiet on the way home. But yeah, more interested in the concept of what does it mean to create, for man to give himself the ability to destroy himself with a weapon of mass destruction, and what does that mean to the guy who created it, like the man who kind of shoulders the responsibility for the Trinity test, like successfully detonating a nuclear bomb. That is Robert J. Oppenheimer. And but yeah, lines in the movie is like a race, a arms race to, like,
Destroy.
against Nazis, like known as, talking about groups, the worst one, right? In
Yeah, but
recent
what was
history.
interesting, like in the movie too, it's like they reached a point where like that part was kind of over,
Uh-huh.
and it like the original thing was like and he was like Jewish too, so he's like, yeah, I want to freaking make this and destroy these people who are killing my people.
Well,
But then
it wasn't.
it wound up
Yeah.
that it wasn't used for that. Like that part was kind of done, and it's like, oh, we're gonna use it on the Japanese.
Yes. Also interesting because I know what it means if the Nazis have a bomb. But then, yeah, in the movie, they're like, hey, Hitler killed himself.
Right.
And then they're like,
But we're still gonna do this.
yeah, continue on. Like, the war's still going. Like,
Yeah.
we can still, it's literally just about like a show of power and force, but
Right.
at the cost of 240,000 lives, right? And the destructive power of that is just, you don't know until you see it, right? And we saw it at the Bob Bullock Museum on the IMAX screen. Some guy next to us said it was the largest screen in Texas. I didn't look that up to see if it was true.
Didn't fact check, but
I'm going to say it is 60 feet. I mean, it's huge.
it's huge.
And seeing a good way to see it is in, obviously, IMAX, because Christopher Nolan's a really big stickler about that whole thing.
Yeah.
IMAX, and it's, but like, there was the moment when they did detonate the bomb and everything went silent, and it was just like fire on the screen for like a good, maybe, I felt like 10 seconds. It was just a long time, and it's just like takes up your whole vision almost. And so, talking about culturally relevant, I remember when this movie was announced, it was at the start of around the beginning stages of the Ukraine war, and then you have a movie about the guy who made the nuclear bomb,
Yeah.
right? And so, like, it's an important message to know, like, to see the story, right? Like, how do you justify someone's life, right? It's kind of like, is this guy a monster or not for doing this thing, making this thing that's so terrible? Somebody else would have done it, right? They literally mentioned the German physicist Heisenberg in it, and
Right.
he was like, went to the Nazi side.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The implications are like so crazy. But I had seen, like, I knew of the story before the movie, and then I read the Wikipedia once it was announced. But he quotes the speech of the real, like, Oppenheimer whenever he invents it, whenever after the creation of it, and they know the power of it. It's just like, what kind of weight is that on somebody, Also, if you were here for the Barbie side of it, that's why we talked about that first. So tune out now because it's called Barbieheimer.
Barbenheimer.
Barbenheimer, right. But like the real guy, he quotes this book, the Bhagavad Gita. Now it's like a big popular, it's Sanskrit, like ancient, writings. And he says, I am become death, destroyer of worlds. And it's just like a story about this powerful being like presenting itself to like this warrior. And what makes you think of that kind of quote to say, The people are like, what are you talking about, right? Whenever you say something like that. But like that quote is so popular because he said it,
Mm-hmm.
And that's interesting to me. The only way for you to explain it is to go to like ancient stories and read about like a god calling himself death,
Yeah.
Interesting. But it's cool that Einstein was in it too.
Yeah.
Even though he wasn't really that.
It's like he was actually in it more than I
Mm-hmm.
thought he was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was going to be like the one scene in the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Right. But
yeah, I think a part of it that was like telling because he was kind of like, I am not a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know that I'm a very integral part of like the physics world and
relativity,
but like I am not a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
So
But yeah, why would you want to be? Like he's already did his thing,
right?
He's kind of retired at that point, just hanging out by a pond all the time.
Yeah.
Just contemplating life.
Yep.
But I think that it's a lot of what causes people to do a lot of bad things is all fear based. Like
right. I mean, I was just thinking
scared of each other.
Like, yeah, because I mean, I have done zero research, so like just based on like what I saw in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I know that's like a skewed perspective. So is that really like does it really represent the person that it's about? I don't know. But from what I like gathered in the movie, it's like this guy with like this huge ego that is very like, oh, hello, Amelie. That is very like
Barking.
smart, but more than smart. But that power is kind of like used by other people too, and like that fear, like they're like, you have to do this,
Mm-hmm.
So like there was other people encouraging that to
Mm-hmm.
happen, like to use his powers for good or evil, like whichever,
Mm-hmm.
Whichever side you're on is how you determine what it was, honestly,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's like, like the fear, because they're like, well, if you don't do this, somebody else will, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just speaking from like a privileged American point of view too. Like,
Right.
Like it's weird to see it from as an American audience member.
Right, because we grow up that being almost like glorified.
Mm-hmm.
Which in that like scene after they've like done the test and he's like giving the speech.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they're like stomping their feet. Oh, my
yeah.
gosh, that like gives me
because
I was wondering like, are they going to
all-
touch on like the horrificness
They were all cheering
of this?
for him. Yeah.
Because like, yeah, like it was amazing and terrible all at once.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that scene was like really, really powerful. I forgot what I was saying or what you were talking about specifically.
Amazing and terrible.
Yeah, I know, but before that. Oh yeah, like it's kind of like glorified, but in that scene, like everyone's like, "Yay, we've done it!" Like, but then it's like very bittersweet because you did it, but also, what does that mean?
What does that imply? Yes.
Yeah.
Like all the cheering.
That means that people are going to be obliterated.
And then he talks to the president in one scene, and he like feels super terrible, obviously, right? And he
Yeah.
like is shaken up, and then the president is like, "You're the one that made it, but you're not the one who had to drop it." And he pulls out his little handkerchief, President Truman,
Yeah.
and waves it into his face.
Yeah.
And then he says, "Don't let that crybaby back in here."
Yeah.
And like, you're talking about the stomping, right? And in that scene, the person like he sees like flashes of light, you know, throughout after it's made, and there's somebody clapping, and it shows like their face melting off.
Yeah.
Which is actually Christopher Nolan's daughter.
Oh.
That was the actress. But yeah, like showing that, and he like steps into like ashes of like a person, and he like because he knows like what it did. And,
what it will do. It hadn't done it.
Oh,
at that point.
yeah. And so I think they were showing images from the bomb drop because he said the Nazis were lucky we didn't do it to them or something like that in the speech.
No, it was
right?
in the way it was in the movie. It was like right after it was successful.
Mm-hmm.
Wait.
Well, they were shown images from. It didn't show the images.
Oh no, it was after they did it. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Because.
Yeah, and then he like
projector.
goes outside and there's
somebody
a guy
up.
crying and there's somebody like throwing up because they saw the like the initial test and so they like know.
But the people who didn't see it were the ones cheering.
Right, because you're a little bit ignorant to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like it's separated from you. You know, I mean, it's like that even nowadays. Like you see something on TV and you're like, oh, that's horrific, but it's not right in front of you. It's not the same. You do have a degree of separation that your brain automatically puts into place to like protect you.
Yeah. It's also shown a lot of. I mean, that's the desensitization or whatever.
Right.
Desensitized.
Right.
How people become like seeing something happen. I mean, I remember The Walking Dead. Like.
Yeah.
How gory that flippin' show is, and it's like what this is like. It just became over the top.
Yeah.
You know, I quit watching after not that long.
But you would just like watch it on
like,
Sunday with your family. Like it was like a family show.
Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, why are we watching this right now? Like, I started it by myself.
Yeah.
And then other people are like, it's an interesting story, but then it's like they had to keep increasing because it just became a soap opera, but they were just trying to see how much more
the extreme
they could do. And you know, at that point, it's, well, I've seen that before. I've seen something like this before. It's like, well, yeah, but seeing and experiencing is two different things. But we toe the line a lot of the time saying, oh, I've seen it. That means I've experienced it. But that is sort of like a term I like called unearned knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Like you're like, I already know about this. Like I've already Googled it. I've already read the Wikipedia. And it's like, I don't know even a fraction of what this whole like the feeling that this dude had. You can just see into his eyes, you know. And Cillian Murphy, the actor who plays Oppenheimer, does a horrific job of like encompassing that. Like the final thing, he tells Einstein something, and Robert Downey Jr.'s character thinks it's like about him because he's like insecure about he's not like a genius like all these other theoretical physicists and around him, but like it's revealed at the end of the movie, like the theory of detonating a nuclear bomb. One of them was they would ignite the atmosphere of the Earth and destroy the world. Like that was it could happen. I don't know.
Right.
And 99.999% or whatever. And so he's like, it's theory. I don't know. Like this never been done before.
Right.
But he tells Einstein at one point, he's like, we could cause a chain reaction that would destroy the world. But then afterwards they detonate it, and then Oppenheimer's getting all of his accolades and, everything. But he tells Einstein, he's like, you remember how I told you that this could cause a chain reaction that would destroy the world? Well, I was right.
Yep.
And then Einstein's like, great. But yeah.
Right. Because it didn't like literally blow up.
No, but it does show. Yeah. It does show an image of the Earth just getting slowly eaten by like fire at the end, and then it ends, and it's just like this sad music playing. Everyone's like, "Well, I guess I'll just go home to my house after this and not think about it again." Like, whatever this implies.
Yeah.
But a chain reaction that destroys the earth is in, there's a lot of fear-driven antics that a lot of political leaders have, and it's like, if we
For
aren't
sure.
first, we're going to get destroyed,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
and, if we all just be a little nicer to each other, I think things would get
I
better.
know.
And just, but,
It would be nice, but
it's, there's a lot of barriers that we have, and,
mhm.
it's us or them. Like, I think
Right.
at this point, really, we should be beyond that.
As like a
There's
society.
plenty to go around,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
But we have enough for everyone. But I think
You're starting to sound like a commie. I'm just kidding.
oh, right. That's what Oppenheimer gets accused of, is being a communist. They're afraid of the Soviet Union getting their hands on
Yeah.
nuclear bomb stuff. Yeah, there was a whole political side of this whole story too, but
Yeah.
that's like what people call some people called it meetings, the movie,
Yeah.
because it was all just meetings
Meetings,
and
yeah.
press conferences and whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that is just a wild thing that we're so distracted with whatever it is.
Mhm.
Like
Seeing Barbie and Oppenheimer.
well,
Just kidding.
no, those aren't. Well, yeah, like you can call those distractions from things, but it's like what's happening, right? Like you can't ignore the world around you either,
Yeah.
but
Sorry.
but you also, like, you can't bury your head in the sand, but you also can't
immerse yourself in it.
shoulder the entire responsibility like onto you. It's like, oh no, I'm the one that's supposed to help and make a change to the world. It's like, well, your goal is a little unrealistic because you have, like driving to work listening to all these geopolitical things, like, and you think that you're the one that, since you're being told about it and you're in the loop, right?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you? Most you can do is change your profile picture on Facebook, I guess. But.
Yeah, let's talk more about actually Christopher Nolan's part in the movie.
He wrote the script in first
the-
person. That's never been done before. That impressed Matt Damon
Oh wow.
a lot, and yeah.
What does that mean, writing a script in first person?
From
his point of view.
no, just like this person told me that, like, normally scripts are written just as a story, or
Right, and all the characters are.
Well, it's like
separate.
Oppenheimer walks up to Strauss.
Right.
And then it says Oppenheimer, and then it's like a line, and it's like,
Right.
"Hey, what's up?" And then
That's
Strauss.
what I was imagining. Yeah.
But it's like I walk up to Strauss, and Strauss looks at me with a look of disdain,
Oh wow.
and then he says to me, and so it's like never been done because he had to get into the mind of this guy.
That's interesting.
Yes, and it is very interesting. He's an interesting guy.
And what about the music? Because I know that's something that you feel passionate about.
Oh yeah,
with
because
it.
so yeah, Einstein, not in the movie, but there's just a quote by him. He said if he wasn't a physicist, he'd become a musician, because he's like, you're these genius people, right? Like, how do you make numbers interesting? But like they see the numbers like an equation as a music, like it's the
Like a
same as sheet
symphony.
music
Yeah.
to them, right? And when it all comes together, it's just like a song. It's like, and so there's a song in the movie. It's called "Can You Hear the Music?" And so when that started playing, it was him going around, and it shows like shots of nature too and stuff. And it was really cool because he was getting inspiration, and he was looking at art, but it was like this cool like it just feels like thoughts spinning up,
Right.
and I personally love incorporating music into things that I do.
Right.
And that's kind of, well, music is what feelings sound like. And so I feel like the way he scores his movies, they're pretty on point with the feeling
Right.
of it.
I agree.
And there's that other song called Trinity, and it's just so tense.
Yeah.
It's just like the strings are like panicking.
Right.
It's like, like, yeah.
Like you know
So great.
exactly what you're supposed to be feeling
Yeah.
in this moment based on the music. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not like the music it's not like it's telling you what to feel. It's just what you're feeling when you listen.
Yes.
And that's what's cool about music. It's just like, yeah, there is like if there's an inappropriate like Party in the USA started playing at the end of Oppenheimer, it would be a
Yeah.
totally different
Movie.
feeling. It's like,
Yeah.
why would you do that? That doesn't fit the tone.
Right.
So they go hand
You're
in
gonna
hand.
pick it based on
Yeah. The
what's
visuals go with the feeling, and
Right.
that's why.
And I know that resonates with you
Yeah.
because you like spend so much time like incorporating music into like the videos that like you make.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
And so like,
Sometimes you even have a song picked out before we go do something.
yeah, sometimes I got my headphones on as I'm looking at the Northern Lights, and I'm like, I'm using this song
Right.
in this video,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah.
so
But I think that could be a part of why you're so drawn to Christopher Nolan's films.
yeah,
Yeah.
every one of them just had like Inception, like
Has
they,
a great score. Yeah.
Inception, Interstellar, they all stand on their own. Tenet,
Yep.
the song from Tenet called "Trucks in Place."
Mm-hmm. I
And
know you like you listen to that one every once in a while.
they move. Well, yeah, it's like a fire truck that they like recorded backwards.
Yeah.
And that's a part of like the rhythm of the song too. And they're actually on a fire truck, but it like fits with everything.
It's also like
So
so
much
cool
thought.
that he's like the composer that he works with is like able to that means that like he has to describe something in such a way where the composer is able to like because Christopher Nolan's not the one writing the music, but he's able to describe something in such a way that the composer is able to like understand it deep enough to make this score for like this particular scene, which is interesting.
Yeah. Interstellar, they had to, well, they used a organ, like a pipe organ, and they build those. They basically
For a room,
well,
they build them inside
building,
the room.
yeah, they build the church around the instrument,
Right.
and so the way it sounds, you can't like that's the acoustics of everything all line up with this giant.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a pipe organ? Yeah, like
Yeah, there was one in like at the St. Stephen's Cathedral.
St. Stephen's Cathedral. Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're huge. They're wonderful.
Yeah.
And so they recorded the score for Interstellar inside of that cathedral, wherever it was. I don't remember which one, but
Which one, yeah.
it was. They had to specifically go there
Really?
and record it there because you can't
bring it into a studio.
Yeah. So,
Oh, that's cool.
but that's what enhances the entire movie. But I think because it was Hans Zimmer that was like
Yeah.
the composer for that one, and he had one of the descriptions I watching behind the scenes making of stuff. They said a father and a daughter lost across time searching for each other is like the tone, and so then you have like that solemn like
That's what
piano.
he went through. Yeah. That's what he used to. That's incredible. Like for the composer to just be able to do that of like a single descriptor.
Yeah, I mean I'm sure more was said, but yeah, it's like it's like
but still.
the same with Oppenheimer. His directing advice,
Right.
Cillian Murphy said that he was too aggressive towards Matt Damon in one scene, so Christopher Nolan comes up to him and he's like, "Hey, remember, he's not a boxer, he's a chess player," and then it like clicked in his head. He was like, "Oh, now I know how to act in this scene," but it wasn't like, "Hey, chill out a little bit" or "turn it down a
Yeah,
notch."
he
It was just like,
explained it in such a way. Yeah.
yeah.
That got the. That's interesting.
So use of metaphor and all that simile stuff is cool. Like it's one of the most effective ways to communicate things.
Express. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then as far as like filmography goes.
Oh, cinematography. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Sorry. Cinematography.
Well, that's yeah. It's well, yeah, using IMAX cameras, and the film reels for the movie are like, was it like 11 miles long or something ridiculous because it's a long movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I think there's the first time ever developing black and white IMAX film to keep the same quality because a lot of the scenes in the movie are black and white.
Right.
And so they developed a specific black and white film for that movie, just because. Same with 1917. Was it Roger Deakins, the cinematographer? He wanted something smaller and more compact, and so they invented the Arri Alexa Mini so that they could do those. It was all 1917 was like one take,
Yeah.
right? So he was just like, I need a camera for this movie, and they were like, okay, but like incentivizes them to like keep innovating
Creates,
too.
yeah.
So to reach flow, as I mentioned in last week's podcast, you have to do something that tests your abilities, but doesn't but it isn't unrealistic. So
Right.
like pushing the boundaries is what a lot of filmmakers do.
Yeah.
To help preserve. I don't know. It's what is that doing? Seeing something new. You can't really tell. It's like, oh, black and white film. You could just like desaturate the regular film in editing, or like you don't have to, but they do it anyways because it's an art form and it has you call it like being a perfectionist, right? But if it's something that you're creating, it's really, in the end, it's for you, or for that person. Like that's why it's cool seeing Christopher Nolan movies, because he's the writer of the movie and the director, right? Like he carries it all the way through.
Yeah.
And it's one vision, and people trust. He's built up enough goodwill and trust about it. I think that makes incredible movies. He's I don't know him personally, but his work is cool. So
Yeah.
I like watching it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so that's
Greta Gerwig did that too with Barbie.
right.
Wrote and directed. So I think there's something to be said, but with that, because you know what you meant. Like it's hard to convey that to someone else, but if you're able to like write it and direct it, I'm sure that makes a difference in how it turns out.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've noticed that too. Like, there's bad examples of movies that like Suicide Squad. Like, there's the studio interference where it's like, this is a jumbled mess.
Right.
I don't really
but
know.
But it's because you didn't let somebody go with their vision.
Is Margot Robbie Harley Quinn in that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Relating to Barbie.
Right.
But yeah, that movie is just the first one, objectively. Well, not objectively, but in my opinion, it is not that great. And there was a lot of like crazy, like nobody had the vision to carry it through.
Right.
But the reason why Christopher Nolan movies, I think, are so profound is because it's just like somebody's imagination just being put onto a screen.
You have to have a lot of trust. But it is hard because you do have to like earn that trust, because they could give that to somebody like, random, and then the movie, like, you can definitely write and direct a movie and it not be good.
Well,
just because you're the one that, wrote and directed it, but yeah.
You had to earn that trust through the Dark Knight movies.
Through the Dark Knight, yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
I'm good.
I'm good too. I think that both of those movies, Barbie and Oppenheimer, are really great movies. And I feel like there hasn't been super great movies lately. I've actually seen quite a few like indie, like A24 movies that I did enjoy.
Oh yeah.
But like as far as like seeing a movie in a theater that I really enjoyed, like it felt good to see those two movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And we know this isn't about like traveling or camping or anything, but again, it is good to take inspiration from everything you do. And
yeah. Sometimes we're not traveling and camping, we're going to see movies. So, yeah.
But I think at the time of you watching this, we are in fact camping though.
We'll be camping at Pedernales.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll be very hot.
It'll be very hot, but we are.
Wish us luck. Yeah. We'll be with Smoosh and O'Malley and
in the sun.
Us too, in the sun, in the van. Yeah.
It'll be fun. All right. Well, thanks so much, guys, for listening. We will check with you later. Have a good one.
O'Malley's back. Hey, Bobo.